Living in a world of space and time, change is inevitable. How willing we are to let go of our expectations, see the changing world around us and embrace it, will dictate how joyful we can be in life. The Buddha said that the cause of suffering in life is our attachment. And we've all had plans, assumptions, expectations that didn't work out. And our peace of mind is directly connected to how willing we are to pivot, to change how attached we are to it. And sometimes that attachment can be a state of mind. It can be an image of ourselves. I was a Waldorf teacher for many years, and in Waldorf education, it's about creativity and warmth and love and working with your hands, being in the physical world. And there's kind of a pride among the teachers to not know technology, to not really embrace it, to not understand. Oh, I don't get tech. I'm not a tech person. Tech is really seen as analytical, cold, heartless. And so when I changed professions and I didn't know how to do these things, I had this image of myself as, oh, I don't get tech. And there was, kind of a sense of pride. It meant that I was more loving. I was more creative and embracing that as opposed to this logical tech kind of coldness side. And for quite a while, Jim was very helpful in help supporting. My husband, Jim, was super helpful. He did my tech support sort of things. But I needed to develop a website. I needed to host workshops online, and I needed to learn how to do these things. And Jim finally said, you're a smart person. You can manage this. And luckily I had a friend of mine who, when we met, neither of us were techie, and she sat down and she learned it. And she was super techie. She and Jim used to talk about different programs and aspects of things. And so I put her image in my mind. I was super proud of her. I really respected what she had done. And I was like, yeah, I can be that. We have to be willing to change our views of ourselves. I had to let go of that attachment. And each of those images that we have of ourselves have benefits. I saw myself in this as someone who was creative, and I really loved the wholesomeness that I felt not being associated with technology. But I also now really love the empowerment and the confidence that I have and the belief in my own abilities that shifting that perception gave me. So grief is caused by our attachments to a future that is not going to be. Maybe it's an attachment to the way things used to be, and we were hoping or planning or assuming that it would continue to be that way. But it's a grief around a future that's not going to occur. And we all have plans. We all have assumptions that we make as we go through life. When we get married, no couple that gets married is not going to assume that they will spend their lives together. They're in love. When we start a new job, we assume that we'll progress in the job in a certain way, or we will be treated in that job in a certain way. Many of us kind of assume that our health will stay the same as we age. We have these assumptions, and one of the things that I'm struggling with right now is that I assumed that my youngest son would be settling in the Northwest. He loves the area, and I assumed that I would be able to be, have an active relationship with him, see him frequently. But he's fallen in love with a woman who is from the other coast, and he lives now in the other Portland in Maine. And I'm super happy for him. And, I have grief around that relationship not being the way that I assumed it was going to be. And it's super important to have those dreams, to have these desires, to be clear on what it is, to make a plan, and to release the outcome and to continually reassess. I would be miserable if I was stuck on the idea that Sam had to be in the Northwest. We have to be willing to reassess our dreams. The founder of Science of Mind and what is now the Centers for Spiritual Living, Ernest Holmes, wrote this, and I really love this image. So he says, you do the choosing, the law does the outlining. If you choose to plant a tomato seed, you have chosen a tomato plant. But you do not outline how many leaves it has, how many stalks it will have. That belongs to the law of cause and effect. So we choose what we want in our lives. And the universe, the vastness of all creation takes that dream and it puts it into a greater web, a web that we can't see. Other people's dreams and other people's skills, and it brings it all together in a way that we would have no idea how to make happen. So we get to choose, and the divine creates that web. It does the outlining for us. And grief can come in many different forms. Maybe it's for a person. Maybe it's for a situation. And a lot of times it's for ourselves. Like we thought we were going to be different. We thought we were going to not be where we are right now as our lives progressed. And we have to grieve that person that we thought we were going to be. We all have these unexpected expectations. We have these losses that we didn't know. Betrayals, disappointments. And that new loss can be really tender. It's important for us to take the time that we need to feel that grief, to feel that disappointment. And then to adjust to the way things are moving forward. When we're ready to look, we can begin to look back and see the gifts in those things, those experiences that were life-shattering, that were horrible. Many years ago, I had started working at a new school. I had moved there to begin with the first grade and continue through 8th grade, which is how the Waldorf system is set up. You start with first grade and you stay with the same class. You become another parent to these students. And I was really excited, and I just gave everything I had. Every moment I had was spent creating the lesson plan for them, focusing on different movement activities or a new song or a verse that I was going to bring with them, or creative ways to explore the multiplication tables or addition. I just gave everything I had to them. And in February, the day before Valentine's Day, I was invited to come to a meeting. And in February, all of the contract renewals happen. So that's what I assumed this was going to be. And I got into the meeting and I was fired on the spot. This was the day before Valentine's Day, and it was after school, and I was told to clean out my room. I had no closure with the students. The next day was Valentine's Day. We were going to exchange gifts, and I was just going to be gone. And it was devastating. I felt so ashamed that my very best wasn't good enough, that I couldn't bring, a quality curriculum to them, that somehow I still wasn't enough. And it was so painful, and it took some time. I after a while I started going, okay, well, what is going to be? What should I be doing if this is not what I am here to do? And I started meeting with a spiritual life coach who, really helped guide me back to what I knew all along. I had started with Waldorf education with my children when they were growing and watched them grow into this. And I got excited about it, and I started learning as well and went into this teaching career. But I knew from a very early age that my soul's purpose was to inspire the love of God in people, and that I needed to get back to doing that. So in order to step back, I had to be willing to look, to feel that grief, to feel that shame, and to be willing to move through it, to change my perspective of what the next step, what my future was going to hold. And one of the things that really helps me in these situations is to acknowledge that we are eternal beings, that I will continue after this playground of life. And I think that it helps me to shift, to realize there is a larger picture. And in letting go of that, I could then look at, what is being offered now? What am I to be experiencing right now? Grief is a process. It's like there's thick mud at the bottom of a bucket. And in order to remove that mud, all we need to do is pour in clean water. And as we pour in the clean water, it dissolves the mud, it stirs the mud, and eventually it will flow over the edge. And that water, as we continue to pour clean water in, it becomes cleaner and cleaner, and the mud dissipates. And that, spiritually, as we're looking at grief, that clean water is the truth. It is our connection with the source of all life. It is the divine designer, the weaver of life. And as we connect with that inner voice, we can then pour that clean water onto our grief. Because when grief begins, it is thick and dark and heavy. And as we continue that practice of really feeling the presence of God moving in our life, we can then begin to clean that bucket out. Ernest Holmes had this to say. I really love this idea of this attachment. So he says, he's quoting Jesus, who loses his life shall find it. And he goes on to say, since the whole teachings of Jesus was that God is life, he could not have meant that you should actually lose your life, but that you should let go of the lesser in order to experience the greater. This is not a bad bargain. If you lose a sense of unhappiness, you will become happy. If you lose a sense of confusion, you will be at peace. And he goes on to say, this is not the easiest thing to do. When you are in pain, it is difficult to affirm peace. When you are in want, it is hard to affirm abundance. But this is the true meaning of losing your life. What you lose is a false sense of being. You are trading the unreal for the real, the false for the true. And Charles Fillmore has a very similar aspect about this attachment to life. Charles Fillmore was the founder of the Unity movement, Unity churches. When the ego consciously lets go and willingly gives up its cherished ideals and loves, it is restored to the Father's house. The first step is a willingness to let go of every thought that holds the ego in the plane of sense. So it's that attachment to the physical world. We believe that it needs to be a certain way. Our ego is attached to things in the physical plane being a certain way. So when we begin to let go of that attachment, we can feel the presence of God more clearly. We can know what is our next step moving forward. And when we are in a situation that we're not happy with, we have a choice. We can choose to be bitter and angry and stuck, or we can use it as an evolutionary driver to move us in the direction that we feel guided to go. When I got fired, I really wanted to make those teachers wrong. I wanted to make them petty and vindictive, and that they just, they could have just given me some mentorship. And I was playing the victim. And when we're in that victim space, we cannot be in the now. We cannot receive the divine guidance that is coming to us. I had to be willing to let go, let my ego, feel that shame and let it go in order to evolve into my next phase. And there's always going to be a blessing in this. So I was able to move into a sense of competence. I chose empowerment instead of being a victim. And we can acknowledge that the divine is in every experience. And I really believe that my experience with being fired was that divine 2x4. We get that whisper and, the feather whisper to go a different direction. And then eventually, if we keep ignoring it, we get the divine 2x4. And it was the universe saying, this is not your path. And so many blessings have come from it. I now live in a place where I wouldn't have been able to live, that I absolutely love. Right afterward, Jim and I found ourselves in a very unique situation. Our youngest was going off to college, and we did not have to stay in Portland. We could move anywhere. And we started dreaming and thinking, well, what are we going to do? And we bought a truck and a travel trailer, and we decided to spend a midlife gap year traveling, camping, which we love to do, out on Forest Service lands, in the deserts, over canyons where there were no people around. We wouldn't see somebody for a week till we went to town. And we never would have been able to do that if I had been attached to an 8-year class. We have these dreams. It's really important to choose, to make a choice of what it is that we want in our lives. I love the Rush lyrics, the band. It says, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. I have found in my life it hard to make decisions. You have to let go of something in order to, actually the word discere in Latin means to cut away. We have to cut away aspects I had to leave behind the teaching in order to move forward in a way that was right for me. And we don't look for difficulties. I think we're programmed to purposely avoid difficulties. But unless we face things that seem bigger than us, we will never know that we are actually bigger than the problem. The hero's journey can't happen if the hero doesn't face those challenges. He can't return a changed person if he never leaves. So as we make those decisions about what it is that we're moving forward to, we have to decide what's important to us, where our priorities lie, what is our path moving forward. Part of that grief is acknowledging that this plan that we had is different, and the path that we had thought we were going to be on isn't our path. So as we adapt, we need to re-choose. We need to redecide what it is that we do want. We get to choose, and the divine does the outlining. So living in this world of space and time, change is inevitable. It's part of living in a physical world. And it's our attachments to outdated beliefs or expectations, identities, plans that we've had that cause us to suffer. As we move out of this victimhood to empowerment, we can decide what future we want to have and let go of what is not working for us, knowing that we are co-creators with the divine. So I invite you this week to muster the courage to feel your pain, to feel that grief, and to listen to that inner voice, to be willing to let go of your attachments to past dreams, to past expectations, so that you can embrace the dreams that are coming to you right now, today, to create this with the guidance and the support of the divine. Blessings.